Hey everyone, Eric Thompson here. Welcome back to the channel, E.T.s Film Review, and as always, hope that you are doing well. Let's start with the obvious. Where are we? Well, we're inside St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church in Georgetown, Kentucky, and this is where I work. This is what I do. I sit here behind this Kauai 5-foot baby grand and lead the congregation here in the worship of Jesus Christ. And I know you can't quite see it over the piano, but the altar is there, and you can see here behind me a painting of Our Lady of Guadalupe, where people light candles and offer prayers for loved ones. My guitar is here. We just had choir rehearsal, for big mass we're having in a couple weeks, and so while I have this quiet time, I wanted to take a moment to film this review, and especially in here because I want to touch on some subject matter that has very much to do with sacredness and the divine in a very special way. But first, the movie, 1991's Silence of the Lambs. Wow, just full throttle excitement. Anthony Hopkins, Jodie Foster, spooky scary. If you're not familiar with the plot, it's really quite simple. Jodie Foster plays an FBI officer, very young, not even out of the academy yet, who gets sort of wrapped up in a homicide case. And she employs Anthony Hopkins, who plays the infamous Hannibal Lecter, a known serial killer, to help her and the FBI catch a serial killer at large. And that's the premise of the film, really. Silence of the Lambs, what that actually means, becomes unraveled as the movie progresses. A really incredible look into sociology, psychology, even psychiatry. In some respect, there's a lot of that happening, between Dr. Lecter and other people who were in the film. A look into what the psychiatric world is like, especially because part of it happens in a psychiatric hospital, I suppose, or a psychiatric ward of a prison, at least, I suppose. And so, of course, this is not the only horror film on the AFI Top 100, and we could probably guess that there are other movies that are scarier or might seem scarier to us. So why is The Silence of the Lambs on the AFI Top 100? Well, for one, the presence of the serial killer means a lot in a film, especially a film like this. Obviously, we, in America at least, if not elsewhere in the world, are fascinated with serial killers. CSI, all of the CSIs and the Law and Orders are fraught with, multi-episode, season or seasons-long story arcs that have to do with serial killers. I remember, it must have been 2005, 2006, the miniature killer in CSI Vegas. Do you remember that? I remember I was watching that with my friends Adam and Kelly and a bunch of friends at college, and it was the other Kelly, I suppose, Kelly, and it was so incredibly exciting to watch this story unfold of this person who had gone through so much in their life, and this was the way they expressed themselves, the way they wanted to be heard was through this incredibly unique form of murder, of homicide. And because The Silence of the Lambs deals so closely and so intimately with serial murder, I believe it earns a place among so many other forensic type movies, okay? Also, and to be fair, I think it belongs on the 100 because it's one of 3 films to win the Big Five. And the Big Five are, the so-called 5 biggest Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay. And of course, in this case, Silence of the Lambs obviously won all 5. Director Jonathan Demme, lead actor Anthony Hopkins, lead actress Jodie Foster. writer Ted Talley, and then the film, of course, won. And here are the other two films that also won that award in their years. And just not a lot of movies do that well. I mean, I printed off the list just to see, and you might not be able to see it very well or not, but that's a whole list of all the movies that have been nominated for those 5 awards, but only 3 of them have won 5, and several have won 4. Gone with the Wind won 4 of 5. American Beauty won 4 of 5, but not many others, but only 3 have won all 5 of the big 5, this being one of them. I think that's noteworthy, okay? That's worthwhile. And we may hear from some of those other 2 films later on in the countdown. And is the film still relevant for today? And of course it is. Not entirely unlike In the Heat of the Night, which also had that forensic homicidal investigation side to it that's so present in Silence of the Lambs. And of course now, as I mentioned, CSI, Law & Order, on and on it goes. Shows that are made popular because of the drama surrounding solving crimes, okay? And truly, this movie, Silence of the Lambs, among other movies, with other movies, broke ground that enabled those shows to do as well as they're doing today. For the time, 1991, it wasn't like over the top graphic, but still pretty graphic and pretty disturbing. Indeed, as I recall reading, Michelle Pfeiffer was asked to play Clarice, but she backed out as she saw the script developing and she was uncomfortable with the subject matter. Gene Hackman was asked to play Hannibal Lecter, and he had accepted initially and said that he wanted to direct the movie as well, but also he was not comfortable with the subject matter. And when you see Jodie Foster and, I just can't keep his name in my head, Anthony Hopkins, in this film, they just abandon themselves to it so beautifully in such an incredible method acting, artistic way. It's really quite incredible. If you've not seen it, please watch it, but please be warned that some of the content is quite gruesome. And so watch it with the lights on, with the pillow, like my mom always said, and get the pillow close. The reflection is, consider this. The Silence of the Lambs runs 118 minutes, start to finish. And Anthony Hopkins is in maybe like 15 to 18 minutes of the movie, total, all right? If you didn't know, he is the #1 villain on the AFI top 100 or top 50 villains and heroes list. Link in the description below, and you can see who the #1 good guy was too. But Hannibal Lecter was, did I say Hannibal Lecter? Anyway, Hannibal Lecter was the #1 bad guy, but he only had 15 or so minutes of screen time. How does that work? Well, when he's on screen, it's absolutely mesmerizing. Truly, in a way that so few other actors can hold us in. And if you've seen other movies with him, you might be thinking, what's so special about him? But in this role, the way he plays it, the intensity of his face, his movements, his gestures, his words, his kind of characteristics, his attitude, draw you in. Darkness, evil, and we are fascinated. We can't take our eyes off the screen, even for those few minutes. The rest of the movie filled with so many other things and ideas and moments and drama, but for those 15 or so minutes, we're just captivated by what Hannibal Lecter is going to do. And almost immediately I thought of the life of the Christian and looking at evil, looking at the devil, looking at temptation, looking at unrighteousness, and being fascinated with it. Perhaps you can think of a time in your life when you've been tempted to sin, or when you have sinned, or when you've been going in that direction, and it feels just like I described, like you just can't take your eyes off of it. like nothing else in the world exists. Even though, kind of like the movie, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, there's all this other stuff happening. But for that 5 or 10%, give or take, just numbers, but for that time, that short period of time, you can't take your eyes off of that one thing. And this is, of course, precisely the objective of the devil, our enemy. And we should not be afraid to talk about it. I'm not afraid to talk about it, okay? It's okay that we talk about the presence of the devil and evil in the world. It really is real. Even though I've gone through all these different movies that have had so much evil in it, dramatization, okay, acting, drama, but indeed they reflect a truth in the world. There really are serial killers in the world that do this and worse things to people every day, all around the world. These atrocities are happening, okay? And so don't be afraid. Don't click off. Stay with me, because there's good news. The Bible paints so many incredible pictures of people who have stared into the face of evil, stared into the face of Satan, and it's recorded how they responded to those moments. Of course, at the very beginning of time in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve stared into the face of the snake, temptation in the apple that was on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And Eve and Adam, I suppose, both of them were probably fascinated by it. Again, one tree out of however many trees were in that garden, So it could have been 1/100%, of the trees, but they were fascinated by it. They just couldn't stop thinking about it, What would it taste like? What would it be like to touch it, to hold it? How heavy is it? What would it feel like, And will it make me strong? Will it make me like God, like the snake promised, And like God said, of course, Well, God didn't say that. He said, you can't do it. But making it all the more alluring, all right? Later in the Bible, and in so many other places as well, we have the heroes of the faith of the Bible coming face to face with evil. Moses, of course, staring down Pharaoh and Pharaoh's army, right? King David, whose beautiful, incredible story really has so much more about looking at the darkness inside of his own life, inside of his own heart, the darkness that would drive him to commit such grievous sin against God, and yet him realizing his nearness to God and his love of God, and being called, of course, a man after God's own heart by God. On and on it goes, and then, of course, we come to Jesus, in the desert, after his baptism, getting away from everyone and from everything. But in he goes to the desert to be tempted. And there's the devil. And they're together, just like two people are together. And Jesus looks into the face of evil itself and challenges and defeats evil, with words and with the truth of God's word. The Silence of the Lambs paints the picture of evil in a cage. That is Hannibal Lecter being caged and kept in prison. But as the film progresses, we see that he becomes more free than anyone else in the film. And then, of course, if you don't know, spoiler alert, at the very end of the film, he's set free, thus leading to other films, of course, with Hannibal Lecter in them. That's the lure of evil, that it gives freedom, that somehow if we indulge in darkness, we'll become more free, and we'll be able to live lives that are more full of freedom. It's just a lie. Think of when you've been fascinated by that one thing, that one person, that one item or object, that promotion, that house, that car, that gaming system, that guitar, that piano, whatever it is. And how you believed in your mind and in your heart that if you had it, you'd feel free. If you had that, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. If you had that, you'd get beyond yourself somehow. You'd become more than you really are. But that's part of the perversion of the devil, that he's worked into our minds, that if we can achieve this or that, we'll become greater, and as great as God. Frankly, I feel that way about YouTube sometimes. I'm looking at so many other incredible entertainers and thinkers, gamers on YouTube that have a million fans, 2 million, 3 million subscribers, and are making, 6-figure salaries off their YouTube channels. And yeah, I want that. And yeah, I really believe in my heart that if I had that, somehow I'd be free. I'd be free from debt. I'd be free from loans. I'd be free from, having to buy the Kroger brand instead of the name brand, right? It's just not true. With that kind of money, I could do lots of things, but in the end, what would I be bound to? Do you understand? This, of course, is the striking reality of the Silence of the Lambs, is that in Clarice's own story, as she tries to reconcile with herself, she can't have either. You must choose the good or the bad. And Jesus said this himself, of course, that man cannot have two masters. We must choose light or dark, righteousness or unrighteousness, and live for one. I realize the irony. Black and white keys on the on the piano, but that's a little different. But here the light and the dark combine quite beautifully. I'm just going to let it hang. I'm going to let that hang there for a while. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you see this in any movies that you've seen? Do you see that fascination with evil, that fascination with temptation or with lust or whatever it is? And if you've seen it in your own life, what's happened to you? If you want to share in the comments below what's happened in your life, I'd appreciate that. As always, friends, I really do thank you for watching. Maybe this video feels a little different than all the others. I don't know why. No, that's okay. It can. Like and subscribe if you care to the channel. I appreciate everyone who stops by to watch and who puts up with me and is willing to listen to these thoughts that I have. I appreciate you being supportive, as always, of course, and for all the fun that we have here on the channel, for all the different videos that are coming out. And, yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm realizing that I am really tired, and so I think I'm going to hit that camera and hit the button, not hit the camera. I am tired. And go home and keep watching. What's next? Let's see. I watched Butch Cassidy. That's coming up next. What's next? I can't think of it. Anyway, friends, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you indeed. Take care. Bye.